All across Sydney, something strange is happening. The places we once gathered, shopping centres, marketplaces, community hubs, are all slowly falling silent. Once alive with the chatter of families, the smell of fresh bread, and the laughter of friends meeting after work. Now many sit quietly, almost abandoned. Echoes of the past linger in empty corridors, faded signage, and cracked tiles. I've been noticing them quietly over the years, sometimes in news articles hinting at retail decline, sometimes in glimpses as I explore the city. A deserted car park here, a boarded up doorway there, and each time I see them, I can't help but wonder, what happened here? How did these places so full of life end up abandoned, leaving only fragments of memory behind? This series is my attempt to capture those stories before they disappear entirely, to explore Sydney's ghost malls and marketplaces, not just as empty buildings, but as reflections of our changing city, of communities that once thrived and the invisible forces that pulled them away. In each episode, we'll step inside a different forgotten space. We'll uncover its history, see what remains, and try to understand the echoes of the crowds that once filled it. Some places still whisper stories, some frozen in time, and others are slowly being reclaimed by the city itself. Today our journey begins in Leichhardt, a suburb once alive with bustling shops and markets, where the hum of the community has faded, leaving only traces of what once was. From here we'll travel further, uncovering the hidden stories of other forgotten hubs, following the faint footsteps of a Sydney that's quietly vanishing around us. After hopping off at Petersham, I made my way through the quiet streets towards Leichhardt. You can almost feel the rhythm of the suburb's past, once bustling streets, lively markets, and now quiet echoes, and standing quietly amid this change is the Italian Forum. A mall that tried to bring a slice of Rome to Sydney, yet today it sits almost forgotten. Let's step inside and see what remains of this grand ambition. Norton Street. For decades this was the beating heart of Sydney's Italian community. After World War II, thousands of Italian migrants came here looking for a fresh start. They brought with them the food, the language, the culture, and they built something unique. Back then, walking down Norton Street, you would hear Italian spoken on every corner. The smell of espresso and fresh bread filled the air. Families spilled out of the cafes late into the night, animated conversations blending with clinking of cups and the laughter of children playing nearby. Even now, pieces of that story remain. Some of the old restaurants are still here, their stories opening onto tables where friends and family gather over long lunches. But you also notice the quieter corners, empty shops, faded signs and closed doors that hinted at businesses from the past era. Each one has its own story, a reminder of how the street has evolved over time. Look closely and you might spot remnants from the past, a vintage lamp still hanging outside a shuttered cafe, an old mural peeking out from behind a newer facade, or patterns of the old cobblestones beneath your feet. These fragments of history whisper of a time when Norton Street was alive in a way that's hard to find today. Festivals like the Norton Street Festa try to capture that spirit, bringing the community together with music, food and laughter, yet locals will tell you it doesn't feel quite the same anymore. And perhaps the most striking symbol of both the past and present stands just down this road, the Italian Forum. When the Italian Forum was dreamed up in the late 1990s, it was supposed to be Sydney's own piazza, apartments on top, boutique shops and restaurants below, and at its heart, a cultural centre to celebrate Italian art, film and music. When it opened in 1999, it was marketed as Italy in Sydney. For a while, that dream felt real. In its first years, this place was alive. Music echoed through the square, restaurants served long into the night, and the piazza became a gathering point for the community. Families came here on weekends. Tourists wandered in for a slice of Europe in the inner west. Locals thought it would anchor Leichhardt as a cultural capital of Sydney's Italians. It wasn't just a shopping centre, it was supposed to be a living, breathing piece of Italy. For a little while, it really was. But dreams don't always survive reality. Within a few years, cracks started to show. The rents were too high, businesses struggled, foot traffic faded as Sydneysiders were drawn to shiny new dining and retail precincts. Norton Street itself was losing the spotlight, and the cultural centre, the very heart of the project, never lived up to its promise. It was underfunded, underused, and eventually shut down. Without it, the Forum became just another shopping complex, and one that was struggling to survive. By the 2010s, the life had drained away. Shop by shop, businesses closed, the crowds disappeared, and what was meant to be the pride of Sydney's Italian community slowly turned into a ghost mall. Today, the Italian Forum is beautiful and haunting. The architecture still holds its charm, the arches, the balconies, the statue in the centre, but without people, it feels almost theatrical, like a stage set with no actors. A few businesses remain, holding on, but most of the complex sits quiet. The piazza echoes with absence. If you stand here long enough, you can almost imagine the life it once had. The laughter, the music, the voices. Now it feels like you stepped into a movie set. A place built to look like Italy, but with no story unfolding. The Italian Forum is more than just another failed shopping centre. It's a story about ambition, culture and change. When it was built, it represented the pride of a migrant community that shaped Sydney. But economics, changing tastes and the pull of the city reshaped it into something else. In many ways, its decline mirrors Leichhardt itself. Once the heart of Sydney's Italians, the suburb has gentrified, diversified and modernised. The Forum stands as a reminder of that past. A grand vision that didn't quite survive reality. This is the Italian Forum, once the beating heart of Sydney's Little Italy, now one of the city's forgotten ghost malls. How does a place built with so much ambition in the middle of one of Sydney's busiest suburbs end up so empty? It's strange, isn't it? A grand piazza in the middle of a thriving city, and yet silence. The Italian Forum wasn't built in the wrong place. In fact, it sat right in the centre of Sydney's Little Italy. The problem was money. High rents forced out small family businesses. At the same time, shoppers and diners were lured to newer hubs across the city. Darling Harbour, the CBD, even Parramatta. Bit by bit, the crowds disappeared. It wasn't location that killed the Forum, it was the simple truth that dreams don't survive when people can't afford to keep them. Was the Italian Forum always doomed to fail, or could it have survived if things were managed differently? Some people say this place was cursed from the start, others believe it could have thrived if only a few choices were made differently. The vision was bold, a living piazza, cultural centre and commercial hub all in one, but the management leaned more towards prestige than community. Rents were set high, spaces were designed for boutique stores rather than everyday needs. Without steady foot traffic, even beautiful architecture can't sustain itself. The Forum wasn't doomed by design, it was doomed by decisions. In another world, the lower rents, more support for cultural events and a focus on the community that built Leichhardt This could have been Sydney's Italian heart. Does the decline of the Forum tell us more about the changing suburb of Leichhardt or about Sydney itself? The truth is, the fall of the Forum is more than just a local story. Leichhardt has changed. Once dominated by Italian migrants, it's now a mix of cultures, students and gentrification. The Italian community has spread out, and Norton Street is no longer the only place to find authentic Italian food or culture. But this isn't just Leichhardt's story. Across Sydney we see the same pattern. Spaces built with grand visions struggle to survive, and as the city's populations, tastes and economy shift. So in the end, the Forum's story is both. It reflects a suburban transition and a city that always is chasing the next big thing, sometimes forgetting the spaces it already has. What happens to cultural identity when the spaces built to preserve it begin to fade away? Culture doesn't just live in people, it lives in places, and when those places disappear, something fragile is lost. The Italian Forum was meant to be a landmark for heritage, a space where art, language and tradition could be celebrated for generations. But as it emptied, so did the visible reminder of that heritage. For younger generations walking through here today, the connection to Italian identity isn't obvious. It looks more like an abandoned shopping centre than a cultural hub. When spaces like this fade, culture risks fading with them. But maybe the Forum's silence isn't a reminder that culture isn't just about buildings, it's about the people who carry it forward even as the landmarks crumble. Will the Italian Forum ever be revived, or is it destined to remain one of Sydney's ghost malls? Every ghost mall has two possible futures, rebirth or oblivion. There have been attempts to revive the Forum. New businesses come in, events are held, and for a while it feels alive again. But without a steady community base, without an anchor that draws people here every day, those sparks really last. Developers have floated ideas, but nothing sticks. Maybe one day the Forum will find a second life, or maybe its fate is to stand like this, not alive, but not gone either. A reminder of ambition, culture, and the reality that not every dream survives the city that builds it.